Hey everyone, and welcome to Screams After Midnight. I am Peter, that is Tim, and we are working our way through the Saw movies because we're miserable and there's a new one coming out in October, and we decided we'd go through all of them, so we've reviewed all the series when we get to the new one, and I'm regretting that decision because today we're talking about Saw 4, which, you know, full spoilers. I'm just going to give you the spoiler warning just now because, quite frankly, I am not interested in dancing around it. And
You're not in the mood.
I'm really not in the mood. And sure enough, you know what? This is the worst one so far. This was a convoluted mess of a film.
and that's like saying something for a Saw movie.
There is far too many things going on in this movie. Which, don't get me wrong, that's not to say that a movie can't have multiple plot lines and it can't, you know, interestingly bring them all together at the end. Because it can, it absolutely can. But this movie doesn't know how to do that. This movie, like, it jumps around so many things. And, oh, by the way, we killed our serial killer. You know, Jigsaw's dead. He died at the end of the last one. So what do we do? Flashbacks. Lots of flashbacks.
Oh, boy.
And his wife... You know, the wife can tell us about the flashbacks, and that's how we'll see these scenes, and we'll have these new characters that we don't care about from the FBI who are investigating what's going on, and two of them, like, very minor characters from the last movie who had one scene are now suddenly main characters because of course they are.
The problem is I care so little for these movies that after I watch them, I just want to kind of like purge them from my memory. But so like when I see these characters in this movie, I have no idea. I'm like, this could easily have been someone important from the other movies that I'm supposed to remember, and I just don't give a shit. Like
that is fair. You know, there is actually one small kind of weird cameo from a character from a previous movie. I don't know if you noticed it. It's when Jigsaw is like, in the flashback. He's waiting outside the clinic for his wife, and this like prostitute, I guess, comes up to the car.
Oh, okay.
That was the junkie from the second movie.
Oh, I didn't realize. See, that totally was over my head because I just don't care.
I vaguely recognized her, so I looked it up to see if it was the same, and it was. It was the same person. So sure enough,
they're trying so hard to make everything so interwoven and connected. Where I might actually enjoy these movies if it was just a crazy guy putting people in death traps, but they have to have this ongoing mythology.
The actual core idea of Saw, the idea of there's a game and he puts them in a game, like, you know, a demented version of the Riddler, and they have to try and work their way out of it. That simplicity, if it was done simple relative to this, it could actually be a lot of fun. Like, there's actually promise in the concept of Saw. But they are so far up their own ass at this point with this movie. Like so there's so many things going on. So what are the names here? Rig is the cop from the last movie, the SWAT leader. They find Dana Meyer's character's body at the start of this movie, and he's like upset about it. He's concerned that everyone around him's dying. So he ends up getting kidnapped and waking up, and you know his game is that, you know, this detective played by Donnie Wahlberg from the second movie still alive. He's got a beard now. He's been held captive for months, and he's hung up from the ceiling, and he's standing on a block of ice that's melting. So Rig has X amount of time to maybe save him. That's what's going to happen. And okay, so first of all, it felt like a weird non-Jigsaw kind of plan because he's kind of free the entire time, which I guess the point of his whole thing is that, I mean, his test is basically just to decide not to go and save him.
But it's so strange because I thought the point of Jigsaw is that he's trying to like teach bad people to enjoy life, but
yeah,
like,
and he's
trying to teach.
Yeah, he's punishing this guy because he wants to save people. This is what he's punishing him for. This is why the movie's so far up its own ass. At least some of the minor characters in this are like rapists and stuff. It's like, okay, right, I get why they're being punished, but this guy, like, you're punishing him because he's hard on himself for not saving his co-workers that you keep killing, you dumb asshole. Like, what? No. So he's doing that, Meanwhile, the other detective that we saw in one scene in the last movie, we see him in the opening scene of this because the movie opens with this ridiculously long autopsy scene where they're like taking Jigsaw's scalp off in the morgue, and they eventually they open into his skull and they find a tape. Of course, there's a tape, and well, it's in his stomach, but same difference. So they find the tape and they call in the detective, and the detective comes in and he listens to the tape.
See, this is I had this complaint about the last movie where they just turned Jigsaw into this dude that is impossibly miles ahead of like whatever, he knows exactly what people are going to do, to the point where even once he's dead, he has all these contingency plans that he knows exactly like people are going to fall for. And it's just, I don't know, there's never anything about him that I feel like warrants this level of
He has too much
genius.
Yeah, he has too much plot armor. That's the problem. Yeah. They treat him like he's the smartest man on the planet. Like, for him to pull off these plans, he is smarter than Stephen Hawking. He's smarter than Einstein. He's smarter than all these people.
See, it's like I believe it in Superman when Lex Luthor does something like this, because that's you're talking about comic books and that sort of thing, and
Tim,
I don't know.
Lex Luthor's never done anything on the scale of this asshole. Not like this. Not at this point. Not 4 movies in, where every single movie they've built more shit onto the same convoluted plot. I mean, seriously.
It is insane, but I mean, yeah, like even I'm just trying to say that there's stuff that I could buy, in a more unbelievable setting, like. Or if you just have this established history with a character where all right, well, this is their thing. They're this type of genius and intellect, and they're this smart or something. But him, I guess it's not even like about smarts. It's like he just knows what people are gonna do.
Here's my big problem with this movie, and why even as under its own rules as the series, it kind of falls apart. And I don't think this one's even like there's no redeeming qualities to this one. There's no central game. I mean, the central game is technically Rig and him like trying to get to detective from the second movie. That's kind of the main thing. But the actual screen time it gets is actually really little because it basically he goes around multiple locations, and each one there's like a different person there that he's supposed to let kill themselves with one of the traps that's already been kind of set up. That's kind of the whole thing. But it only gets so much screen time because there's so many other things going on. We cut to the detective, to Donnie Wahlberg, and now the new detective that we saw at the start of the movie from the last movie, whose name I'll refer to him a lot, so I'll need his name. He's Hoffman, Mark Hoffman. So Hoffman's him, right? We're in spoilers, by the way, full spoilers. He's the one at the end that turns out to be working for Jigsaw, right? So just and the funny thing is he looks evil the whole time, and it's just like, oh yeah, I'm so shocked. Not that they earned the twist either, admittedly. Like, see when the twist unraveling music plays, right? It's like dun 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 dun, right? And he's like walking up behind Reg. I'm like, you've not earned this. And the moment that it really pissed me off is as he's leaving the room, he like turns and says, "Game over," and shuts the door. I'm like, I barely know who this guy is.
Yeah.
Like, I have no context for who this asshole is. Why do I care?
I have no idea.
At least in the second movie with Amanda, the twist worked and was kind of effective because we knew she was a victim. We had context for her, and she seemed like a victim. All he does in this movie, after the kind of fake his kidnapping, is he just sits in a chair with a gag in his mouth. He does nothing all film. He just sits there.
And I mean, that's something that I was going to kind of get at, but isn't this pretty much like the same twist as the second one? Like, hey, surprise, this person turns out to be working with them all along.
Much.
And even like the second one, it ends with them just closing the door.
And the first one ended with that as well, to be fair. You could almost argue the game over and then the close of the door could almost be something that happens at the end of all of them, because it's like the final little thing. But
yeah.
So the other big twist that happens at this is that this movie is actually taking place at the same time as Saw 3. The opening scene with the autopsy is actually set after the movie, right? The rest of the movie. Because when all the characters actually finally converge, because we have the 2 FBI characters who are looking into Jigsaw, and they're kind of like getting to the crime scenes that Tig goes to, like just behind them, and they're like trying to figure things out. And that goes on. Meanwhile, we have the interrogating of Jigsaw's ex-wife, and we get the flashbacks, and that's going on. Like, there's all these things happening, and they're all kind of like jumping around, and it's harder to get a hold of this one. Which, by the way, on the subject of the FBI agents like checking out these crime scenes, two really stupid things I want to point out. One of them is that a random like forensic photographer gets killed because one of the forensic guys is like dusting one of the traps for prints, and he sets it off, and this arrow goes through her neck. So first of all, yeah, who hired this idiot? Secondly, after the crime scene at this there's like a school, and it's like we get a flashback with the detective was involved, where this dad was beating up the kid, and the wife was sticking up for him, and so after, it's actually the same one where the forensic chick gets killed, but they realize there's something else in the building. They go to check it out, and they find a room with the doll, and there's a tape. So they play a tape, and it's to the female FBI agent. And it's like, Agent what's her face? I don't know. Perez. Agent Perez, your next move is an important one. And it's like, Jesus. And it just, it says this thing, and then she becomes suddenly the most stupid character in the history of the movie business, because she hears a mechanical noise coming from the doll. So we're into this legendary reign of this serial killer Jigsaw who kills people with traps. She's been to several of his crime scenes and seen several of said traps, and yet she hears a mechanical noise coming from something that she knows is from him, and she leans in towards it. And wouldn't you know it, it's a trap. She ends up with a lot of shit in her face. She might be dying. What? Why? And why do I care? There's a scene afterwards where the partner calls her mum to like, hey, I've got bad news. Like, we're supposed to give a shit. Like, I don't know any of these characters.
Yeah, it's very strange, and do we have like a time frame for how long he's been operating? Because like from the movies, it feels like since the first movie, this has all taken place over like 3 days or something.
Yeah, like the timeline from the first movie to now is very short. But in the first movie, they're talking about it like he's been doing it for months. Because remember, Dr. Lawrence says they came to investigate me months ago, thinking he was a suspect.
Oh, right.
So Jigsaw had been a thing for months.
Yeah, no, I don't know if this is something where, if you're a big fan, which there are, like I know people who are big fans of the series, so I don't know if it's something where all these little interconnecting things like really make you excited, but if you're not a fan of it, it's just really frustrating. Like you said, you see these characters and you're like, why do I care about them? And they do try to make everything feel like a big deal. Like every minor character, every death is supposed to be like, oh my god, I can't believe that just happened. But I mean, maybe it works if you like it, but if you don't, it's just so tedious. And
here's the thing, I love mythologies that build, and I love Twin Peaks, I love Lost, I love Westworld, Mr. Robot, things where it gives you hints and seeds, and then you start to build a picture as you go through it. Like, that's when it's done well. This is not done well. This is, they wrote the previous movie and then decided they wanted to write another movie, and they wanted to somehow make it feel like, oh, this is going to change, this twist is going to change the past 3 movies. So it's just super convoluted to try and make it have more twists. That's how it feels like. That's what it feels like to me anyway. And so here's the thing, the third movie ended with the main character, like the main guy who was like going through the game, Angus McFadden. He like, his wife ends up dying at the end, and Jigsaw dies, but he finds one more tape saying that his daughter's also been kidnapped by Jigsaw, and we actually end in a cliffhanger where he screams because his daughter's been kidnapped by Jigsaw, and that's what, because it leaves you off with the impression that the next movie is going to be him finding his daughter. And what's the payoff for that, might you ask? So we go most of the movie where we don't see him, we don't know anything that's going on with him, and it's when we actually reveal that it's been taking place during the same time as Saw 3, because our characters are showing up. The FBI agent, Rig. I got there eventually. FBI agent Rig are congregating on the site, right? And then we just cut to the guy from the third movie. Like, it just cuts to him, and the music goes, and it's like, okay. And then you're like, oh wait, he's just walking in to the ending of the third movie. Like, that's actually happening right now, and that's when you realise it's all going on at the same time. So that plays out. His wife gets her head blown up. Amanda's died on the floor. Jigsaw is dead. And then how does his story end after he's found out that he needs to go and save his daughter? How does it continue from the point where in the end of the last movie, the big cliffhanger was that Jigsaw has his daughter and he's got one more test to do. FBI man walks in the room and shoots him and kills him. He's dead. Screw you, movie. You left that open at the end of the third movie like it was a big deal. Like, we're going to do something with this. Like, we've planned for the next one. We actually left something to do with it. And yeah, somehow the fourth movie feels like, no, we had a different story we wanted to do, and we just kind of realised halfway through, oh yeah, we need to actually wrap that up from the last movie. It's almost an inconvenience that they have to kill him off just quickly.
And it's kind of annoying because we don't like these movies, so we don't care. But at the same time, it's like, you're trying to make us care, and then like we're like, all right, fine, you gave us this twist, there's gonna be some payoff, and then you're not even gonna have the decency to try to pay it off for something that we don't care about, but you're trying to make us care about. This
is a big example of why we don't care, though. Like, this is just a really big example of it. But the reason why we don't care is because they don't spend enough time with the characters. Everyone is just kind of miserable. Like, there's never, like, would it kill them to have like a happy moment for a character near the start of the movie before their life starts going to shit? And because Jigsaw keeps going after like cops who are connected to the previous cops who investigated him, and he sort of like keeps just going, like, everyone that we get to has already lost like tons of people, so they're already miserable at the start of the movie, and it just kind of feels like, and obviously you want a certain tone, I get that, but it never feels like you actually get a time to really grow to like any of the characters. They're just like, because like, you know, the FBI agent, the lady, like, she gets like not quite killed, but like, you know, injured badly, goes sent to hospital, and the male FBI agent starts like getting angry and like throwing things off the desk. He goes back into the ex-wife and he shouts at her, "God damn it, tell me about Jigsaw, tell me about him, god damn it."
Boy, you really do learn a lot about Jigsaw.
Oh, you
this.
do. He has a clock that's 300 years old. And also there's this convoluted plot where he was like he was buying property with a lawyer or something.
I thought that the whole thing, like the whole reason why he's doing this is because he was a person who was diagnosed with a terminal disease, and you know, he decided it wasn't fair. He didn't appreciate life.
It was when they wrote the first movie. That's what the reason was. But of course, you get to the fourth movie and it's like, no, we want more backstory, so let's give him more reasons. Let's give him more reasons. And sure enough, his ex-wife ran a drug clinic for, you know, addicts to come and, like, you know, get help. And sure enough, one guy breaks in, and she's pregnant at the time, by the way. And I kid you not, he kills the baby accidentally by opening the door so quick that it crushes her pregnant stomach. That is literally a scene that happens in this movie.
This was so over the top dramatic. It was insane.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe.
And then like 2 scenes later, like Jigsaw, like she's lying in bed and she's recuperating, and he comes up, he's like, "You can't help them. They have to help themselves." And I'm like, "That's Jigsaw." Like, seriously, like, we had to go that deep. We had to again, do you know what? Horror movie villains are scarier when they don't have too much explanation. Like,
I don't understand. Why are you trying to give me reasons to sympathize with the villain? Like, he's supposed to be, like, you know, they're scary boogeymen. They're not supposed to be like, oh, I feel bad for him.
Here's the thing as well, though. Like, see, your whole problem, or both of our whole problem, but you brought it up earlier with the, like, his plan's been so intricate, and he's so far ahead of the game, and he's predicting all these things. He's predicting how people react. I could almost let that go if he was like a complete mystery, like. But the more human you try to make him, the more I feel like the rest of it's just bullshit and fake. Like it feels like so unrealistic. Whereas at least if it was like this unknown presence that we never really found out about, I could almost like speculate in my head. Maybe he's not even really a person. Maybe he's more than a person, and that's why he can do all this. Or if it's left to the imagination, you can almost like forgive like things being so smart, like because maybe he's more than that. And even if he isn't, he's so unknown and mysterious. Like maybe it's not just one person. What if it's 20 people that are all working together to achieve? Like, but no, we know it's him. We know it's this one guy. We know his pregnant wife had a miscarriage because a junkie slammed a door in her stomach. We know that he was in a car crash. We know that he had cancer. We know all these things, and it just is like, okay, go away. And by the way, weird complaint, but so halfway through the movie, like again talking about stuff that's done already with the first movie and the second movie, so we've got hanging detective from the second movie. We've got the new detective Hoffman, who turns out to be the Jigsaw like replacement guy, in the chair in this room, and there's like someone who in the room who's watching them, and it's a lot like the first movie where the fake Jigsaw, like who was Ben from Lost. He was but obviously it turns out no, he's a pawn as well. He's like doing this as part of his game, watching them. It does that same thing, and it turns out to be this lawyer from Jigsaw's past that some of them have encountered before. He also got a lot of these victims off charges that we've seen throughout the movie that Rig encounters. And it cuts to a flashback of him. Like, as soon as we see him for the first time in present day, it cuts to him in a flashback at the police station. And I'll be honest, I think they made a really stupid blunder here, because they cast someone who looks a lot like Hoffman. Because when it cut to the flashback, I thought it was Hoffman with a wig on. Because he has different hair, but he looks very similar, like in terms of his face. I thought it was the same goddamn person for a minute. And I'm like, oh, I guess it's not. I guess this guy just looks like him. That was just poor casting. Because you're not meant to cast two people who look a goddamn alike like that. But whatever.
I honestly, I cannot keep track of like almost any of the characters in this movie. They all kind of look and sound and act the same to me. Like, you're either a crooked cop, or you're like a cop trying to seek justice, or you're a junkie, or like a sleazy some type of guy, like scam guy that's like taking advantage of people. And they all kind of look and sound the same and act the same to me.
There's really no one to root for. Like I never found myself caring about anyone, but I can't even see objectively like who would I be rooting for. Would I be rooting for I mean, Rig, I guess, is the closest, because as we pointed out, he's not actually done anything bad. He's been punished for wanting to help people. Like, come on now. It's just Jigsaw being up his own ass. Like, it's just bullshit now at this point. Like, yeah, you're telling people you want to help and you want to do this and that, but you're not really. So
you're running out of ideas. You've gotten down to the last cop in like in the area, and you're like, oh, this guy's good, but I still want to play a game.
Yeah, we actually saw the first time he said that, because he got the guy who shut the door on his wife, and he gets him in his first ever trap, which is basically like this like gate of knives on his face that he has to push through with his face to like get his hands free so he can get out. And then he does that, and then just before he puts it on, the guy's like, oh, what do you want to do with me? What do you want to do with me? And he's like, I want to play a game. And that's like the first time he ever says it. And then I like how that ended, at least, because he moved out the way and the guy ran into like a sort of pit of barbed wire, and that was kind of funny. It was kind of funny. Oh, I'm not gonna lie. I was amused by it. The traps were whatever in this one. Like, we had the big opening trap, which was kind of disconnected until you realise later on it's the lawyer who was the one of them. You've got a guy who's had his eyelid sewn shut, and you've got a guy who's had his mouth sewn shut, and they're connected to this device, but because the other guy can't see, he just hears the noises from the other guy and thinks he's the enemy. He thinks he's the guy who's done this to him, so he tries to fight back, and then the lawyer's got his mouth sewn shut so he can't speak and tell him that he's not, like, he's also trapped, he's not the bad guy. So blind guy starts fighting, he has to fight back, and he eventually has to kill him. And the big shot, the money shot before the title hits is him finally ripping his mouth open, and it's just all the screaming and the blood, and that was okay, I guess.
I thought at least this one seemed a little different. I feel like all the other traps in the movies are kind of the same. It's just always people like getting like body parts ripped off or things like stabbed into him.
Yeah, there was at least like a kind of cool, inventive bent on this first one. Just the idea that one of them couldn't see and the other one couldn't speak. Admittedly, I will criticize it in that how are they supposed to figure this out? Like, Jigsaw's thing, at least he claims, is that they can get out of it, they can win, but how? How can they win? how do they do it?
Yeah.
But I don't know. But yeah, he's banking on this guy surviving because then he leaves him a tape recording. The lawyer, he leaves him a tape recording because then he needs to go and do this other thing for him. And it's like, well, what if he's the one who died?
Well, I mean, again, I guess he just has those psychic powers where he knows exactly what's going to happen.
No, admittedly, yeah, sure, the blind guy is likely to lose, but still, I mean, it's not dead certain. And what if the blind guy won? Like, even if he had a tape recorder that had the same message on it, like, how's the blind guy going to do the stuff that you wanted him to do?
Yeah.
It doesn't.
Again, I guess you just have to go with he is the smartest man to have ever lived and plans everything so meticulously that there's no way his plans can go wrong.
Yeah. Also, in one of the flashbacks, he reveals like a trap. It's like a glass box with lots of smashed glass at the bottom of it. Did you not notice that never came up again in the movie?
I honestly, I did not care at all that. And
but the funny thing is I remember it though, so it's in a movie, so I think it must be in the next one.
Okay.
So that was set up for something in the next one, I guess. Like, sure, why not?
It's such a weird thing where you like when you're watching the movies, it's not just enough that you have to be like, oh, they're picking up on this thing from the last movie. You have to be like, all right, that's from the first movie. This is from the second movie. That's from the third movie. This is gonna be from the movie coming up.
See, no, this would be fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with that in theory if all of these things were actually memorable.
Oh sure, yeah. If you actually enjoyed it, it'd be great. It would give you more of the world to, like and explore and stuff. But when you don't like it, it is such a tedious hassle.
Yeah, it's like the movie doesn't actually function on its own. It's nothing but a series of like connecting things to the previous entries. It's really frustrating and just kind of unfulfilling.
I just really don't want to waste like even any little bit of brain space like having to remember like any characters and seriously anything.
So much of this movie are these new FBI agents running around trying to figure stuff out, and that is a lot of the movie, like, which is why it actually feels a lot at least less Saw-like than the previous ones, because it spends so much time away from the actual like game, if you will, or the actual game that's going on, and I don't know. I feel like any charm that it Saw might have, I feel like it's taken away when it's mostly just detectives like try to find like what's going on.
Yeah, I don't care about the backstory, or I don't want to watch like an episode of CSI. When I'm watching these horror movies, like just if it was just. I feel like we've already said this a couple of times, but yeah, if it was just Jigsaw putting these people through all these crazy traps, I mean, if they still have the same style and look, I still wouldn't enjoy them that much, but I definitely would like them a whole lot better than, trying to have this like shitty crime mystery angle to it that they have.
And it feels kind of redundant because at this point in the fourth movie, they're just going to have a twist at the end that, like, no matter what, these characters are all playing into the trap. They're all screwed. I don't believe for a second that any of them are going to actually make it out, which is a problem because there's no chance of like one of them having a happy ending. So it just feels like a foregone conclusion that they're all screwed. At least in a slasher movie, like, oh, that one girl is probably going to live, so I can root for her. Whereas in this, it's like, no, they're all screwed. It's fine.
Yeah, or you think like in a slasher movie or something that, oh, like maybe they can at least fight back or find a weakness or do something. But here, again, Jigsaw, even when he's dead, he's like this invincible like guy that you can't get around, that there's no, you can't root for anyone. There's no feeling of
anytime someone thinks they're fighting back, they're just playing into the trap.
Yeah.
That is it. Anytime there's no sense of chance, there's no hope that they might get through it. It's just not. It's a foregone conclusion. You're just doomed. It's fine. Just let it happen. Whatever. Like, I actually think it would take great balls. This is what would impress me in the new one. If someone actually outsmarts them and beats the trap. If that, I don't even know what the plot of the new one is. Like, if there is like a main game or whatever, but
Yeah,
I could really go for that.
be interesting.
But I don't know. I was angry at the end of this movie. Like, this movie jumps around so many plot lines that I just did not care about. Because at least the core idea, if it was just people in a room with some mysterious trap and they're trying to figure it out. But this is the one where it really became torture porn to me. Like, people throw that term around and like, oh, Saw started torture porn. Like, Saw and Hostel did that. But this was the first one where I really felt like, no, this is actual, just like that opening with like the autopsy. And it was just like watching them slowly peel off the skin, and I was just like I don't mind, like I don't care, but it felt like, no, this is just here to have an extended gory sequence without any.
And you know what was even worse for me, because I was watching it on Hulu. You can stream it on there.
Mm-hmm.
And when I first started watching it, I think maybe like my internet connection was like a little slow or something at the beginning. So this opening autopsy scene, it kept skipping. So it'd show 2 seconds and then it would just like freeze on them, like peeling off his scalp or something. And it just made it even like harder to get through. I was like, oh my God.
That's actually pretty funny. It's actually pretty funny. I feel like what little charm that even Saw 2 and 3, like, you know, even the first 3 as a whole might have had, was basically flushed down the toilet with this one. This is the one where, if you didn't already hate it, this is the one where you should have felt it jumped the shark. That's what it felt like to me. It felt like they were just grasping at whatever straw they could to justify keeping it going as someone breaks down the door at Tim's. So I don't know. I'm done. Any final points, Tim, you want to make about the movie? Can you explain the real estate plot in the flashback?
No. I can explain that, I guess, where the Jigsaw doll comes from.
Oh, that's right. He got a little one as a present from his wife because we needed the origin of the Jigsaw doll and where it came from.
And I look forward to hopefully the next movie they show where the pig mask comes from.
How do you know we don't get that in 5, 6, or 7 now? Come on.
True. So wait, so the new one that's coming out is the 8th one?
Mm-hmm.
Ah, man. So that means we have at least 3 more to get through. At least the 8th one, like at least it'll be in October. Maybe I'll be a little more forgiving in a Halloween mood. And
it's a new sort of era, so that it may not be the exact same as the old ones. They may have had to spruce it up a little bit, because at the very least the trailer did not, you know how this desaturated is the word, look they've got, where there's barely any color, like you see the reds but everything else is just kind of blue and green, like, you know, at least that doesn't appear to be in this new one. It looks like an actual proper movie, so at the very least there's that's the one sign I hope I've got for you, but other than that,
and I get, and we didn't really mention it, but you know, in all the other movies we have the same criticism where it just has this like kind of annoying like filter to it, and then everything is done in this kind of like frenetic sped up way when they're focusing on stuff. Yeah,
especially the traps, and when someone's in danger, there's all this speeded up editing and like just like one frame at a time kind of thing.
I even noticed it like, you know, in like the interrogation scenes and stuff, even that, like the camera cannot stop moving, like it's constantly like, you know, like sweeping and like circling around like the characters and stuff. Like I just wish they would really just let the camera sit for a minute.
I think that's part to blame why you never care about the characters, because it never slows down to just let you like spend time with them. Everything's always moving. It's always move. Like, you know, can't slow down. Can't have proper pacing. We just have to speed through it like it's a you know, there's a big checklist of things we need to get through. And this one, because it was jumping around so many plots compared to the previous films, it made it it's almost harder to remember a lot of this movie, because I didn't remember a whole lot of it, because it does just jump around all these different things. I didn't remember these FBI characters. I remember the autopsy at the start, and that was it. I guess that was the one memorable scene in the entire film, because that's all I remembered from my previous viewing when it first came out.
Yeah, I at this point I have no idea which movies I've seen and which ones I haven't.
Well, find out soon.
Yeah, I think I watched one last October just because it was like, oh hey, a newish Saw movie is streaming. I forget if it was 6 or 7, but I don't remember anything about it. And then I don't know. I think the only thing we haven't really mentioned, I don't think, is the end of Riggs' test, which he fails.
Well, yeah, and the character who we were supposed to be rooting for all throughout Saw 2, and then had a brief moment in Saw 3, and then we find out he's still alive right now. Basically gets 2 giant ice blocks smashing his head, and his head gets basically, I wouldn't even say squished, it's exploded. Like, it just explodes his head on impact. Which is a fun little visual, but, his whole test was just to stay away. He could have just stayed away, and that'd be it.
That's the thing that's so stupid. It's like, it's not even like there was something that was hard for him to do. He just had to wait a little bit, but he couldn't.
I'm tired. Let's wrap this up, Tim. I want to not think about this movie anymore, and we're having to speed through them a little bit because we're getting closer to October, and we we're like, crap, we're behind. We need to get through these. We've got another 3 to go, and only a month and a bit to do it. So, with that said, Timothy, what would you give Saw 4 out of 10?
And like at this point, I find it so hard to rate these movies because I just see them as like the same like big pile of crap. Like, the first one I'm like, oh yeah, whatever. Second one, okay. And now at this point, it's just they're all the same. I think this one I'm gonna give a 2.5.
You're generous. I'm giving it a 2. Straight 2. 2 out of 10.
See, the only thing that worries me is like, it's like if I give this a 2.5, like, then what happens if the next one is way worse? Like, I mean, I can't imagine them getting worse.
I'm pretty sure you said that last time when we were rating Saw 3. You're like, no, I can't go too low because I need to have room to go lower as we keep going. For what it's worth, I remember Saw 5 not being quite as terrible as Saw 4. Well, I don't necessarily mean good, but I don't remember hating it as much. So,
okay.
Optimism.
Look forward to that.
Ain't going to be that long, Tim. Few weeks at most till we're doing Saw 5. So I look forward to it. But there you go. That's Saw 4, the train wreck that it is. I can't wait. And yeah, like, I'm so excited by this Hoffman character who's now the new Jigsaw. Like, I can't wait to see what he's doing in the next movie. Like, what he cares about. Why is he doing it? I'm sure we'll find out. I'm sure we'll find out something.
Well, if we don't like him, I'm sure we'll get another Jigsaw by the end.
Probably. I mean, Amanda didn't last long, so maybe we will.
For a little while in the movie, I kind of thought, like, when they showed his ex-wife was pregnant and stuff, I was like, oh, I wonder if his daughter's gonna end up being Amanda. Because it just seems like everything like is so interconnected. I was like, I wouldn't be surprised if they did something like that.
They didn't look any younger to me, so I didn't even think of that. But yeah, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if they tried to pull that off, even though it would be complete bullshit because of the ages. Yeah. Like, it looks like it's a couple of years ago at best.
Yeah.
Not 20. I think she was even. I think I looked this up actually. Like her age last time. I think she was maybe about 30 when she made this movie. She's a bit older. Because she was in because she was playing teenagers at like the start of the 90s, so she was she was a little bit older by this point. Not old, but just the point being, it's not been 30 years since that flashback is my point. So, but that's Saw 4. Let's wrap this up, Tim. You can let us know what you think of Saw 4 if you have been unfortunate enough to sit through it. in the comments below. You can like, subscribe, all that stuff, and all that jazz. I did promise you on the last review that I would be revealing what the October votes were,
Yes.
or more specifically, the voting in September for patrons for the month of October. Because as I said, there's 2 Patreon votes, and then there's a public vote. So patrons get 3 total votes, and then the public get 1. Because it's, voting for the month of October, where we do a lot of extras. And that seems like a good idea. Now, I forgot I was going to do this, so I'm just going to go and get the image up to tell me what they are. Tim, stall for time. Talk to the lovely viewers about something.
Well, we're really excited about October. We're hopefully, if everything goes according to plan, we're going to bring lots of extra movies. And, if you're interested in doing the voting, we are going to have a public one, but we're also going to have 2 Patreon-only ones. So you can head
You're
over.
literally just repeating things I just said a minute ago, Tim, now. You started off good. You started off great. You're like, oh, we're excited about October. But then you panicked and you went into the same crap I just said. Okay, so what's coming up in the votes? So the public vote that is open to absolutely everyone, I will make sure there is a link in the description below to the vote for the public one, because everyone's allowed to go to it, is a werewolf vote. So you get to pick from Wolfen, The Howling, the classic Werewolf of London, and the Wes Craven, not as well remembered movie, Cursed. So that's your 4 options. That is open to everyone. There'll be a link in the description below. So you get to vote on which one of those you want us to do next month for October. So you can go do that. The 2 Patreon votes, this is the $5 tier and up on Patreon, over at MailFuzz TV on patreon.com. The first vote is for what we're calling knee-high mischief. And the options in this are Critters, Gremlins, Puppet Master, and Ghoulies. So you can check out that vote. So that's kind of the fun, silly one. And then the other Patreon vote is the classics. And that is Phantasm, The Thing, The Shining, and The Omen. So that is a pretty meaty one, because that's like, big classic movies we've not done yet. There is a couple of other big classics we've already got planned for October, and there'll likely be a lot of weird random things, as well as the new movies that are coming out, the new sequels that obviously we've been building up to all this time, like the aforementioned Jigsaw. So that is the voting for during September for the month of October. There's bonus votes because it's October, it's October-thon, it's Halloween, it's our time of year to celebrate, so let's do that with some extra votes. So there you go, that's the voting. So go over and do that. Patreon.com/MailFuzzTV for all that stuff. Go and look there. The public one, there'll be a link in the description below. But patrons, if you get the post on Patreon with the link for these 2 votes, there'll also be a link to the public one there as well, for just so it's easy for you, because they'll be in the same place. So with that said, that is us. So thank you once again for watching. Keep watching scary movies, but not the Saw movies, because they're not very good. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time.